I am about to address some things as the supervisor. There will be no comments, there will be anything, it'll just be me addressing you guys to tell you what's going on.
Or the administration can adhere to some financial limits. We're not looking to necessarily...
The drama surrounding the Village of Dolton and its controversial mayor, Tiffany Henyard, is nothing short of jaw-dropping, and it all starts with a single question: did Henyard appoint her deputy chief, Lacey, not because of his abilities, but because he was willing to do her bidding? This story, full of twists, turns, and betrayals, goes far beyond a simple job appointment. It's about power, corruption, and the lengths some people will go to stay in control.
Of court, the judge today declining to hold her in contempt, but did warn her that if she did not follow the ruling, he would.
Let's take a step back and look at what went down. The appointment of Deputy Chief Lacey should have been a straightforward administrative process, right? Wrong. What seemed like a regular government decision quickly spiraled into one of the village's biggest political scandals. Lacey wasn't just some deputy looking to make a name for himself. No, he was handpicked by Henyard for a reason. He wasn't chosen for his qualifications or leadership skills. He was picked because he was loyal, willing to do whatever Henyard asked, and ready to enforce her will without question.
This administration is shameful. Y'all are a disgrace.
We're watching the fall of this administration.
Henyard's political career has been filled with controversy since day one, but this appointment, this particular move, took things to another level. It didn't take long for residents and even trustees to realize that Lacey's role wasn't just about law enforcement, it was about control. His appointment was a calculated power play in Henyard's ongoing effort to consolidate control over the village. Lacey was her enforcer, someone she could count on to keep her in power by any means necessary, even if that meant stepping on a few toes or a lot of toes, as it turned out.
I'm a private investigator. I've got some books as super mayor. Inside I have from the United States District Court, Northern District of Illinois.
People quickly noticed something was off about Lacey. He wasn't the type of leader who was there to protect the community. Instead, he started throwing his weight around, intimidating residents and trustees alike. It was clear that Lacey had no problem using his authority to get things done, but not in a good way. His behavior raised suspicions almost immediately, and rumors began to swirl about his real purpose in the role. Was he really there to serve the community? Or was he just a pawn in Henyard's larger plan?
That's clickbait, huh? All right. I guess anything else? I get sued all the time. Y'all, stop.
One trustee even remarked, Lacey wasn't just another deputy, he was handpicked as Henyard's enforcer, a pawn in her power play to consolidate control over the village. And that's exactly what it felt like to the people of Dolton. Lacey's aggressive tactics didn't go unnoticed. He was seen as a bully, someone who wasn't interested in doing what was best for the community, but rather what was best for the mayor.
We believe strongly that that meeting was improperly called and improperly held. The residents of Dolton...
Things started to get real when Lacey began clashing with the trustees. One of his first moves after being appointed was to attend meetings where his mere presence sent a clear message. Henyard was in charge, and Lacey was there to make sure of it. Trustees who opposed Henyard's decisions were met with hostility, and soon, it became apparent that Lacey was not there to mediate or bring peace. He was there to intimidate and force the trustees to fall in line with Henyard's wishes. Trustees and residents alike started questioning his motives, and people began to realize that this appointment was about much more than just policing. It was about power.
Also new tonight, Dolton Mayor Tiffany Henyard is suing some village trustees over Monday's meeting.
At one point, tensions hit a boiling point when Lacey showed up to a meeting where the trustees were discussing budget cuts. The mayor had been accused of using village funds for personal purchases, and the trustees were determined to get to the bottom of it. But just as things were heating up, Lacey walked in, and the atmosphere immediately shifted. Witnesses said it was like watching a bodyguard enter a room, except Lacey wasn't there to protect anyone but the mayor. The trustees, visibly shaken, tried to continue the meeting, but Lacey's presence was impossible to ignore. It was clear that this was more than just a job for him. He was there to protect Henyard's interests at all costs.
The mayor took steps to correct those things that the Attorney General required. And so we believe that for that reason, the meeting was supposed to have been here.
And let's talk about those interests for a second, because Henyard's financial dealings were something else entirely. Henyard, known for her lavish spending, had been accused of misusing public funds for personal expenses, and it didn't take long for Lacey to get dragged into the mess. While it was Henyard who orchestrated the spending, Lacey seemed to be shielding her from scrutiny. Whether it was attending village meetings, deflecting accusations, or using his influence to silence critics, Lacey was always there, backing Henyard every step of the way.
Very appreciative to receive the information today. We have the best mayor ever. I've been here since 1993.
The numbers involved were staggering. There was the infamous report that Henyard had spent over $43,000 on personal Amazon purchases, using the Village's credit card as if it were her own. This wasn't some small error, it was deliberate, blatant misuse of taxpayer money. Then there was the $85,000 party, a mind-blowing amount spent on a single event that featured performances from well-known artists like Keek Wyatt and rapper Jay Holiday. What was this money supposed to be for? Village improvements? Community programs? Instead, it went to fund Henyard's extravagant lifestyle, and Lacey seemed to be complicit, doing everything he could to keep the heat off her.
I'm here to appoint my police chief, my village.
Things really started to unravel when insiders began turning against them. Rumors swirled that Lacey was involved in tax evasion, and it wasn't long before legal trouble started piling up. The cracks in their alliance became impossible to ignore. It wasn't just the residents who were fed up, people close to Henyard and Lacey started talking, and soon, the whispers turned into confessions. Lacey, who had once been loyal to Henyard, now faced serious charges of his own. The legal fallout was intense. According to one insider, as cracks in their empire began to form, whispers turned into confessions. Lacey, once loyal, now faced charges of his own. The once powerful duo was starting to crumble. It was as if all their secrets were being dragged into the light at once. And while Lacey may have thought he was untouchable, the legal consequences of his actions were catching up with him fast. One of the most damning pieces of information that came out during the investigation was that Henyard had awarded contracts to businesses owned by her friends and family members without following the proper procedures. It was clear that Henyard was using her position to benefit her inner circle, and Lacey was right there with her, turning a blind eye to the corruption. But it didn't stop there. Lacey was also accused of intimidating anyone who dared to question the mayor's decisions, further solidifying the image that his appointment was never about doing the right thing, but about protecting Henyard's corrupt empire.
Last month, the judge issued a temporary restraining order blocking her from making those appointments without approval from trustees.
As the investigation into Henyard and Lacey deepened, more shocking details began to emerge. There were allegations of bribery, financial mismanagement, and even manipulation of public funds. Witnesses in court described private conversations between Henyard and Lacey that painted a picture of two people more interested in personal gain than in serving the village. And while Henyard continued to deny the accusations, calling them politically motivated, it became harder and harder to ignore the growing mountain mounds against her. In the middle of all this chaos, one of the most explosive moments came when someone incredibly close to Henyard decided to turn on her own boyfriend. This was a twist no one saw coming. The man who had stood by her side, who had been a part of her inner circle, suddenly took the stand and revealed shocking details about her misconduct. According to reports, he provided evidence that Henyard had been diverting municipal funds for personal use, including luxurious vacations and high-end purchases. If anyone knew where the bodies were buried, it was him, and his testimony sent shockwaves through the courtroom.
Everything is my vetoes. So I got several vetoes here that the board has.
Henyard, who had always been so confident in her power, reportedly erupted in a furious outburst during the trial, shouting at him and interrupting the proceedings. Those present described it as a full-blown meltdown, with Henyard visibly shaken by the betrayal. It was a dramatic scene, and it only added fuel to the fire for her critics. The media pounced on the story, and soon, even her most loyal supporters were struggling to defend her. Despite all this, Henyard continued to maintain her innocence, framing the investigation as a politically motivated attack. She even went so far as to post cryptic messages on social media, saying things like, "I need all my black sheep to stand with me." But it was becoming clear that the public was losing faith. The court case triggered widespread outrage, with residents demanding answers. The town of Dolton, already struggling with economic issues, was now facing a full-blown political crisis. The once quiet village was now the center of a national conversation about corruption in local government. And as the legal proceedings continued, more and more people started to distance themselves from Henyard. Even members of the village board who had once supported her were now calling for her to step down. Trustees were fed up, the residents were angry, and the media was circling like sharks. It was only a matter of time before something gave.
Called our security firm, we made sure they had wands, and we also told our board to come upstairs due to the fact they had several ways to exit out of the building.
At this point, Lacey was facing serious legal consequences of his own. He had been dragged into the investigation alongside Henyard, and rumors were flying about his alleged involvement in tax evasion and other financial crimes. The man who had once been so confident, so sure of his place in Henyard's inner circle, was now caught in the same web of corruption that had brought down so many others before him. It was as if Henyard and Lacey were on a sinking ship, and neither of them could escape the inevitable. In the end, it wasn't just Henyard and Lacey who paid the price for their actions. The entire village of Dolton suffered. The misuse of funds, the corruption, the intimidation, it all took a toll on the community. Trust in the local government was shattered, and residents were left wondering how things had gotten so out of control. The federal investigation loomed large, and it seemed like every day brought new revelations about the extent of the corruption. It was a dark time for the village, and many wondered if they would ever be able to recover. But what do you think? Will Henyard manage to escape the consequences of her actions? Or is this the end of the road for her and Lacey? Let us know in the comments below.